Hello and welcome to Digging Deep, Kitco Mining's new weekly news show with me, Paul Harris, in which we dig behind the stories in search of a deeper understanding of what is going on in the sector, with comment and opinion from a roster of special guests, starting today with JuniorMinerJunky and Kitco contributor David Erfle. David, welcome to Kitco.
Thanks a lot, Paul. Always great speaking with you.
Let's start with what Digging Deep is not. Digging Deep is not investment advice, and the opinions expressed are our own and not Kitco's mining. Also, Digging Deep isn't as penetrating as the line of questioning in this newspaper article where they interview mining executives. Take this, David. Is your preference for an aisle or a window seat?
Aisle seat.
And what's your favorite color?
Oh, got to be the obvious, gold.
I think we can do a lot better than that, David. Let's start with the overall context. Gold price has broken out this week. Why is that happening now?
It has? You wouldn't know it by looking around here, especially on Sunday, which was, Sunday's always the retail day at PDAC, where we, the conference hall where all the miners that are hawking their wares and trying to sell their story to the general public. The general public comes, and we have a lot of students come usually. But when I came the first day on Sunday, the gold price had just made an all-time daily and weekly closing high the Friday before. Yet you could pretty much roll bowling balls down the aisle. There wasn't that many people. And I was walking around talking to companies at their booths, and I asked them how much retail has come up to ask you about your company. Many said one or two or none. There weren't even very many students. I didn't see very many students, so it was really, really interesting. But the conference as a whole is pretty upbeat because the gold price is breaking out and the stocks are starting to respond now. So it's been a very interesting PDAC for sure.
In most years, people talk about the curse of PDAC, which basically means that after PDAC, the gold price and share prices plummet. This year's looking at a very different story.
Oh, the last 2 years, we've reversed that curse, Paul. I mean, if you recall last year, the gold price coming into the conference started to perk up on the Silicon Valley going into receivership by the FDIC. And, usually we have, like you said, the PDAC curse happening, but we had the gold price rise up over $2,000 for, I believe it was the third time last year. And this year, we had the same thing happen where it was even worse for the gold market coming into PDAC. I think the last 2 weeks of February were the worst I've seen for the gold stocks, and yet the gold price was still consolidating in this symmetrical triangle. But the triangle was a descending triangle, which is bearish. So many were figuring as the gold stocks were going down before either the breakout or the breakdown of that descending triangle. But on the last day of February, which was Thursday, the gold price started to break out bullishly of that triangle, and it closed for the fourth consecutive month above 2,000, and it actually closed above initial resistance at 2050 on a monthly basis. And then the next day, the gold price had a huge move, and it made a daily and weekly all-time closing high, while the dollar and U.S. Treasury yields pretty much didn't do anything. And but I think the reason why that happened was NYCB, New York Community Bank. They announced an emergency new CEO because of internal issues and major losses on a report that they issued, and the stock went down another 28%. And there's speculation now that that's going to be another bank that's going to go into FDIC receivership. And now today we've got Fed Chair Jerome Powell being grilled by the House, and tomorrow he'll be being grilled by the Senate as the gold price has reached 2151, which was its all-time high, but in an overnight overseas burst 3 months ago. So it's going to really be interesting to see what a very overbought gold price does after Powell is done speaking today and tomorrow.
$2,151 per ounce. That's a very good gold price. It's a record gold price. So presumably a lot of the gold producers will be putting away some good free cash flow this quarter. Now, one of the special appeals of PDAC, I think, is a lot of different countries come here to show their wares and encourage mining investment. The event often has a lot of ministers here and things of that nature. For me, the standout in that context this week was Ecuador's President Noboa being here in person. It's very rare that a president of a country comes. So he came here to show his seriousness and commitment to the mining sector, and he signed investment protection agreements for $4.8 billion worth of mining projects. Agreements with SolGold, Lumina Gold, Kitco Mining, Luminex Resources, Adventus Mining, Backtech Environment, Challenging Gold. Any news on Ecuador or other countries, in terms of political risk?
Yes, it's interesting. Ecuador was coming back on my radar about a year ago, but it seemed to be a little premature. So I took some companies like Adventus off my watch list. But the last few weeks, I've reintroduced Lumina Gold back onto the watch list because of what's happening there, and it looks to be very positive.
That's the Ross Beatty.
Yes, Ross Beatty backed company. They've only got $7 million cash, but he's got if anybody's got access to capital, it's Ross Beatty. So, but that's a huge project, and I know there's probably some flora and fauna issues. There might be an environmental issue as far as getting the permit. It might take a while. We were discussing before. But also another country, you've got a new libertarian president in Argentina, and everybody's excited about that. But it's going to take a lot of work, and a lot of things have to go right for him to turn that around within his term. So, but it's really interesting. His speech at the World Economic Forum was really interesting. So
Argentina had quite a sizable delegation here. I had a meeting with the governor of Mendoza, and they're very keen to encourage exploration in copper, perhaps with jealous eyes looking at what's happening to the north in San Juan. They had a very big delegation here.
Yes, it's starting to get exciting where you're getting these left-leaning politics are starting to loosen up, and it's getting more mining friendly in some of these countries.
I think it's also notable. Colombia wasn't here; they didn't have an official presence. Chile did, but it was off-site, so not part of the actual PDAC itself.
Yes. I mean, it's but then again, we've got places like Mexico that have been mining friendly for so long now, wanting to ban open pit mining, trying to ban open pit mining. They don't have the votes to do it, but it's a very serious issue for mining.
Let's talk about some of the sort of key news highlights this week. I think one that really stuck out, we've talked about this a lot already, Hochschild Mining. They took an option to buy Monte do Carmelo, which is a gold development project in Brazil from Cerrado Gold. Tell us your thoughts on that, David.
Yes, I'm very familiar with this one. I was a Cerrado shareholder up until a couple of months ago. I had a meeting with management at Beaver Creek, and they informed me that they're going to have to raise $8 million. You see, they've got an interesting situation where they've got a project in capital-controlled Argentina, and they had another project in Brazil. So they almost have to have two treasuries. So they needed money, but the management owns 15% of the company. So they wanted to have a better deal than the deals they were offered, and I think what happened was they declined one too many offers, and they got into trouble. The street knew they were in trouble and started forcing their share price down. So then they were forced to sell what I believe was their flagship asset. That's the reason why I got into the stock in the first place. It was because of Monte do Carmelo. I mean, the margins on it are incredible. And even Mark Brennan himself said it's the best project he's ever been associated with. And now he's been forced to sell it because he mismanaged capital markets. And this is a management team that I did really, really well with. When I first came into the sector, my first big win was Desert Sun Mining. It was like a 6 or 7 bagger for me. So, I was very favorable with management. I figured, and Desert Sun project was in Brazil. So I figured, okay, hopefully this guy can do it again for me this time. But this is a totally different market from back then. And unfortunately, they mismanaged the capital markets into a situation where they were forced to sell their best asset for only $67 an ounce in the ground.
Well, I was just going to get onto that. The sector likes numbers. It likes benchmarking. Monte do Carmelo has reserves of 895,000 ounces. So at a $60 million deal, that, as you say, is $67 per ounce for reserves. That seems to be a very low benchmark. To what extent do you think that may condition future deal flow that we see elsewhere in the sector.
Yeah, that's bad news. It's like, your house on the block. You want to sell your house, and you want to look at comps on the block of what other houses went for. And if somebody sold their house under market value, or they didn't get a very good deal for it, then you're not going to be able to sell your house for as much as you think it's worth. So it's bad for the sector. Absolutely.
Well, let's continue our dive down the M&A rabbit hole, David. Probe Gold announced the acquisition of the Beaufort and Mackenzie Brake properties in Val-d'Or, Quebec, for Monarch Gold assets, I believe. Well, what's your view on that?
Yeah, so I am a Probe shareholder, and it's in my top 10 companies in my newsletter. And this is an example of a management team that has managed capital markets correctly. I mean, David Palmer's done a great job. He never has below $20 million in his treasury. He saw an opportunity as far as Monarch's concerned. That it's in their camp. Monarch has gone into receivership. He got the Coronel project from Monarch earlier, and now he's getting these projects for a song. And Beaufort was like the missing piece in the Novador project in the Corvan trend. And it adds another 750,000 ounces. He got it very cheap for a little bit of cash and shares. And this project is fantastic, and it's actually trading above the average in-ground ounces for its category.
Do you see other consolidation opportunities in Val-d'Or for Probe or others? Probe's market cap now is over 200 million Canadian. O3 Mining seems to be, they want to sell. Presumably they want to sell to Agnico Eagle Mines because their Marvin property is very close to Canadian Malartic. But as you say, Probe is very present in the district. His market cap is more or less twice what O3's is. Is that a deal to be made?
It sure looks like it to me. Consolidation needs to happen not only in that area, but in the sector as well. So, absolutely. I'm also an O3 shareholder, and I cover the stock in my newsletter. So, that's the reason why I got into it in the first place, because it's an obvious one to be acquired by Agnico Eagle. But of course, it would also fit well in with Probe's land package also.
Now, in your newsletter, you've talked about M&A is often desirable, but you've talked about, given the low equity prices at the moment, we're talking take unders rather than take overs. A good example of that was Marathon Gold, which I believe you own. That was taken out last year by Calibri Mining. But I think that this particular transaction shows perhaps some of the patience that's necessary, because now that the Valentine asset, the development asset in Newfoundland and Labrador, is, you could say, in better hands, the Marathon shareholders that took Calibri shares, some of those are now in the money rather than being well below the money when Marathon was running things. Right.
Even though, we would rather see Marathon be taken over by a North American company and not have that Nicaraguan country risk. But yes, but what it also did with Calibri is it bloated their share structure. It was an all-share deal. So yes, it was beneficial in the end for Marathon shareholders like myself, because it is going in the right direction now. But I would have rather seen it being taken over by a North American producer.
One other company that presumably is on the hunt to take over another asset is Dundee Precious Metals. They made a bid for Sino Resources, which has a gold development project, Kone, I believe, in Namibia. But they got beat out by a Chinese company, Yantai. So presumably they're sort of ready to go. Well, not necessarily ready to go, but actively looking to add another asset. Where do you think they're going to be looking?
Yes, that was another big win for myself and my subscribers, Sino. We were in that pretty much from the beginning. But yeah, if you take a look at Dundee, they're obviously gonna take a look at something else. It might even be something like a Montage Gold, which is another company that I cover and that I own shares in. Their Kone project is huge, and it's got a strip ratio of only 2-to-1, the low all-in sustaining cost. It's going to be shovel ready in about 6 months. They've got 4 strong shareholders in companies like Endeavor and Barrick and Perseus. So And so I wouldn't be surprised that eventually, this is of course what you hope for as a shareholder in a company that's a takeover target, would be a bidding war, because that is a fantastic project, and it appears to me that the market has turned. So some of these companies are going to maybe start looking at these things and like, hey, we better start thinking about making a play before they really start to move higher.
Another company where investors seem to be anticipating the possibility of a bidding war is Western Copper and Gold. They recently announced a management change with Sandeep Singh taking over as CEO, Paul Wessels moving to, I think, president or chairman, and then he's going to be transitioning out of the company next year. Sandeep was instrumental in the SolGold Cornerstone Capital Partners merger a couple of years back, and effected a sort of change in the board, a change in the management of the company with a clear mandate to, we got to get this project sold, SolGold and Cascabel in that instance. Western Copper and Gold is in a similar situation. It's got Rio Tinto as an investor, but it seems to, the anticipated takeout there seems to have stalled. So presumably that's going to be high on the agenda of Sandeep, is to get a transaction.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's a positive placement, because he came in and brought a lot of money with him when he was placed there. But you and I have visited that project, and I did really well with it in the 2016 run up in that stock. But it's a really tough build. They're going to have to flood an entire valley to build that tailings dam, and that's going to be a big ask. But still, I mean, that's a very positive development for that company.
Okay. Anything else struck you as interesting this week, David?
As far as the conference is concerned, it's like I said, it's very subdued, but it was very positive, and I saw a lot of positive things happening. But we just need that retail element to come back into the sector, and we need Bitcoin and the stock market to roll over for people to start thinking about, okay, I need to hedge myself in some gold. Look, gold is breaking out of a 13-year cup and handle pattern. And the last time gold broke out of a 13-year cup and handle pattern was at the 500 level. This was right before I got into the sector. And once the gold price had that monthly close above 500, it went up 360% in 6 years. That's happening right now, where this breakout I believe is taking place. It's not a technical breakout until you get a $2,100 monthly close in gold futures. So, we don't have a monthly close for another 25 days, but it sure looks very promising. But the gold stocks and silver are really going to have to start to catch up and start participating for this, I think, for this to take place.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, David. We'll have you back on the show in a few weeks' time. David Erfle, JuniorMinerJunky.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
And this is Paul Harris, digging deep for Kitco Mining. And if you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe.